I've been warned by a couple of people. Evan Markham is a big guy who's done an E30 N54 swap in San Diego. He has been kind of coaching me a little bit and giving me some pointers on how to do this. So I want to take those pointers, I want to enhance them, I want to show you guys exactly what to do and how to do it in order to overcome all these hurdles that you might find if you were to do an E30 N54 swap as well. Really awesome downpipes, and they're going to really provide a good amount of power for us. However, it looks like that one, that's the outermost one, is going to end up hitting onto the lollipop of the control arm. So we're going to need to either modify it or, we're going to have to modify it. There's no way about it. Also, the N54 is a rear sump oil pan. We're going to need to adapt that to the E30 subframe. There's two different options. You can go there. You can either modify the oil pan or you can modify the subframe. What is the easiest way to do it? I won't know until I actually get in there and start fitting things up and understanding where the interferences actually are. So that is going to be where we go first with this swap, is to get the drivetrain placed first. My integrator's guide for the E30 in the N54 will show in one of the very first sections how to set your drivetrain correctly into the chassis. So important, because without that, you don't even have a swap. So let's do that first. Okay, now that the engine is completely out, we need to start taking out some of the other stuff that's over here, power steering stuff, any other type of wiring that might be getting in the way of getting the N54 in. So we got our Harbor Freight lift, and we're going to be putting getting the engine up. I want to take the oil pan out because this oil pan is not going to work unless I make subframe modifications, which I don't think I want to do it. But if I have to, I will. So we're just going to end up seeing how things roll out with this, but I want to see where the interferences are between the N54 and the E30. And I'm talking about the front clearances, the side clearances, the back, everything. I want to understand why it won't fit, what we need to do to modify and get it to fit. And we're going to try to use as many bolt-ons as we possibly can in order to get this thing to work. So let's get this engine up. Let's take the oil pan out. And let's make sure that we can get this thing to fit. So before we put the engine in, I want to take off the things that I don't really need right now. And that are the two oil lines. I got to take them out. At least we can put them on easily later. We have to fit it up. The electrical I'm just going to leave as is, right? I'm not worrying about anything electrical right now, so neither should you. This rear tube is it's loose, it's broken. I might upgrade them. I'm not sure what I want to do yet, if I want to go to silicone for the rear. I've heard some really good things about silicone for the rear from a friend recently, and we might end up doing that on this. I do want to remove the oil pan to see what kind of clearances I'm up against, and I want to remove the AC lines, and probably maybe this front piece too, because that's not really needed for fitment at all. So everything else looks pretty good here. It's got a little bit of oil, but overall, not so bad. This is what's called the dead blow hammer. This is a 52 ounce one, which is actually kind of big, on the bigger side of the dead blow hammer category. It's got like these little pellets inside of here that it's really good at transferring the momentum from the hammer to the subject. If you don't want to ruin or destroy what you're trying to hit, or minimize it at least, it prevents metal-to-metal contact from a hammer, and it really helps to soften the blow but still provide the momentum that's necessary. So right now I've removed all the bolts, or at least I think I have, including the two that go through the transmission. And I am ready to now basically chock it with a hammer and release the sticky oil pan gasket to see if I can take this thing out and see what's going on underneath. Oh, still one more. Let's see what we can do. Oh, there we go. And now you can see that the only part of the rear sump of this rear sump oil pan is the pickup. So if there's a way that we might be able to redesign this pickup, we might not have to go with the rear sump oil pan. So guys, when I removed the oil pan, I have a question for you. This was kind of dislodged up inside of here. So I pulled it out, and this is what it looks like. It's like a hard rubber type material. I mean, it looks like the remnants of a serpentine belt, and I'm aware of the serpentine belt issues. This engine did not have a serpentine belt on it when I received it, but it was inside. It was inside here. It was not outside of it. And looking inside of the crank pulley looked good. It didn't look like there was anything in there. So I don't know what that is, or if there's some sort of a rubber gasket or seal that goes somewhere inside the engine that wore away. I don't know the answer to that, but it does require a little bit more work, and I got to figure that out. But I don't know. As it stands now, I'm just looking for some advice. What is that, guys? Tell me. Taking off the exhaust headers because it's going to make the installation a little bit more difficult. I can always put the headers on later to see what the interferences are on each one of these individually, and I'm pretty sure that the outside one, or cylinders 1 through 3, is going to have a problem. Now, in taking off the oxygen sensors, I noticed that one of the wires actually got snagged and is stuck inside of the rear valve cover gasket bolt. And it doesn't come out very easily, so I'm thinking that oxygen sensor wire looks like it's some sort of a ground wire. I don't know if it's a signal, but it is crimped in there, and I gotta get it out now. Easy, I mean, no big problem. But I wonder if that was causing issues ever during the driving and any type of drivability issues that came up. I don't know. There's issues with this engine. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on it, that's for sure. Not to mention the regular maintenance items that we're gonna end up doing on it, like valve cover gasket, oil filter gasket. I don't know if we're going to be doing a walnut blast in this, but I will certainly suggest it. So yeah, a lot of work to do on this engine before we ever put it in this as a final installation. So we got the E30 ready for an engine. We have an N54 ready for an E30. Let's put the two together, test it into the engine bay, and let's just see where the chips fall. What type of issues are we going to find here? What kind of interferences are we going to come to? And how many different problems are we going to need to solve here? So let's take a look at that right now in a quick time lapse. All right, let's tag up and talk about where we are right now. Fitment so far is pretty tight, but it doesn't seem to be too bad. I do have clearance in the front to get down below. I got a jack down on the back side in order to beef up and prop up the transmission once I want to start leveling it out. I don't have the oil pan on for obvious reasons, and looks like the only interference that I'm going to have is the intake air tube, which I kind of figured would be a problem because it is pointing out in the furthest direction, so I figured that would have a problem with the radiator core support. But I think I just need to remove it, or remove this clamp here and make it just a regular hose clamp. So I'm not sure what I want to do yet. I'm probably just going to end up cutting this and then just replacing it with some sort of an Oetiker clamp or something like that that's pretty much stronger than a regular clamp. got here? We got an N54 sitting in an E30. Not quite sitting. Needs some adjustment. Let's talk about some of the clearances that we have and things that we need to adjust and or change or design out. So let me talk for maybe 60 seconds on my thoughts on the initial fitment. It is sitting currently on a jack down below. The oil pan is out. For obvious reasons of clearance, I'm going to need to figure out a solution for the oil pan. But I did put the hood on and I have clearance. It is a little bit tight right around here where the frame of the hood hits. But I don't know if we're going to end up going with a stock air filter, if we're going to go with intakes, cone filters. I'm not sure yet. But the front interferences are really not too many. We got about 3 inches of clearance, just enough to get a radiator in there. We're gonna have to figure out some sort of a pusher fan in order to keep it cool. Remember, these engines like to run hot, so I don't expect to need a lot of cooling for this, but it is necessary, obviously. The interferences on the front, again, that guy's gonna be a problem. The intercooler line is gonna need to be, I'm gonna need to cut away at the radiator core support in order to fit that. The rest of it doesn't seem to have an interference there, maybe a slight one along the edge. That's okay. The interference on this side needs to be cleared as well as the other side, and you can see that the compressor makes a little bit of an interference. We're not going to be doing AC in this car. This car was never equipped with AC, so we are not going to be doing it on this car. And what else? Let me show you how it looks underneath for full transparency. All right, oil pan has been removed. It looks like I have it sitting on a nylon block about a 1/2 inch thick right now. I think that that's appropriate. I think that's where I'd like it to sit and live. Other than that, no other clearances on the bottom. Steering rack is going to be fine. No issues on the steering rack. Let's take a look at the transmission. Currently, it's sitting on a jack, and if I look up above here, it's actually going to fit pretty nicely. The side to side is pretty wide. I think I might need to shift it a little bit over more to the passenger side. The driver's side is pretty tight, and that's just basically alignment. When I do the Guibo alignment with the drive shaft, the input of the drive shaft, that'll really help to set the final alignment location, which is pretty much what's going to be in the next video, is how am I going to align this thing. So, and then finally on the rear, obviously I had to push it back as far as I possibly could, and the big part about the issues with clearance is going to be, you know, the rear intake tube, and that is basically pushing up against the firewall. So, so I need to figure out what's going on with that and get the details on that. Wiring will all be stuffed through this hole here. It's going to be really tight though, so I'm going to have to figure out how to get a lot of this harnessing into the engine, into that room, or I'm just going to make this the bay for wiring. We'll see. I'm not sure exactly how I want to do it yet. Coolant reservoir looks like it might end up staying in this location. The charge pipe is going to come in here and around. The intercooler is going to sit inside of here, so I got to start removing the front bumper and the headlights. I'm sure you guys are wondering why I did not do that yet. And the reason is because I don't have to right now. I really just want to get the engine positioned and set. That is the biggest part of any engine swap, is to just get the drivetrain sitting without interference. Once you do that, everything else is just ancillary. So the biggest issue with this swap into the E30 is going to be your oil pan. Hands down, the oil pan solution is going to be difficult to find. This is the N54 oil pan gasket that I removed from the engine, and I got myself a creative idea. I don't know if it's going to work. I hope it will, but if it does, then this might actually solve this problem for the E30 swap, N54 into the E30 swap altogether. This oil pan here is from